let's talk a little bit about those patterns or those cycles that we get in, that we seem to get stuck in, or it's really difficult to get out of. Okay, things like specifically the shame cycle. I hear it so often, from clients, people here in the group, and everywhere. The shame cycle. It's so toxic for us, and it's so sticky, for lack of a better word here, that it feels so hard to get out of. That changing that pattern. Maybe for you it's not shame. Maybe for you it's more anxiety. Okay, we all have kind of different dominant emotions, and they may even change over your healing journey as well. Shame was a big one for me for a while. Then anxiety. Maybe for you it's anger or grief. But they're patterns that we're getting ourselves into. Sometimes a small thing can trigger that, and the thoughts that we're having, they kind of fuel that emotion, and that feedback loop, the emotion gets, it brings up more of those kind of thoughts, and round it goes, and we feel like we're stuck in that cycle. So I want to talk a little bit today about how we can break that cycle. Okay, how can we get out of this? But because it feels so deeply ingrained, so hardwired, it almost feels impossible, or it did feel impossible to me for a long time. But before I want to talk about how we can get out of it, I also want to mention that literally always, when I have one of those intense emotions coming up, I like to do an inner child process. I think it's important to acknowledge and validate those strong feelings that my younger self had, how difficult it was for her. To really validate again and asking her, what does she need, and giving that to her. So we don't want to dismiss that in any way or bypass it, because those emotions are there for a reason. Just wanted to highlight that too. But how do we get out of this? I don't know, cycles. What I've noticed, nearly all, most of my clients, or even just people here in the group and everywhere, most people are very clear, they have some deep awareness of what it is that triggers those cycles for them. They can give me a list of the thoughts that happen, that they have about themselves when they're in that cycle, or when that circuit is fired, that neuronal pathway, that circuit that is so strong. There's certain thoughts associated. They can tell me where in the body they can feel those kind of emotions, and they can predict what they're going to do for the rest of the day when it happens. So they have very great awareness and a lot of clarity around this. But what I noticed is what's missing is what they want instead. That is very vague. People often say, I want to be happy. Yet what does happy look like? How does that show up in your life? What would you be thinking? What would you be feeling? What would you be doing if you had that kind of emotion? Okay, and a lot of therapists miss that. A lot of therapists, they keep going. You keep going back, repeating those old stories and what happened in the past, and rehashing that over and over and over again. Obviously, if you're doing that, it's creating the same emotions as you had back then, the same thoughts, and you're not actually getting out. You're just strengthening that cycle. So what we need to do is actually becoming clear of what you want to have instead. What kind of emotions? And this could be anything. There's no right or wrong. Some people want to have more joy. Some people want to have more connection, some calm, peace, courage. Courage is a big one. A lot of people want to have more courage. But we need to become really clear on what does that look and feel like. Now, I don't know about you, but I have in psychology they call it alexithymia, if I pronounced it correctly, but this is when we can't identify an emotion in our body, or we might not even notice it, and we can't define it, we can't name it or label it. So I learned emotions out of textbooks, what they feel like, and so forth. So it was quite of a challenge in not just defining the emotions that I don't want to have, but also noticing what would it, or visualizing or thinking what that would feel like if I had some different emotions. So what I use is visualizations, okay? And that might sound woo-woo, and a lot of people always question me on that, but there is science behind it, all the way back to the 90s. They've done research on people who play basketball, play piano, you know, Olympic sports, the athletes using visualization, because it is so powerful. Okay, because they showed when people actually doing an activity like playing the piano or playing basketball, how they did brain imaging scans on these guys while they were doing it, and they saw which areas of the brain are actually lighting up or working or firing and all this. But they also noticed that people who only visualized also had the same neuronal circuits firing up, and they also improved in their skill. So this is really key for our healing, because even knowing we have those really strong circuits for shame, anxiety, anger, resentment, and those kinds of things, but we're often lacking the circuits for the joy, the connection, and things like that. And with visualization we can build that. And it is a challenge when you don't know what those emotions are actually meant to feel like in your body, when you're struggling with that. So I used a lot of images that represent that, and had a lot of help from therapists as well. So don't ever hesitate to reach out for help. I think it's so important in our healing journey. Friends can help as well, like identifying emotions, and working with children always helped me. You know, there's a lot of kids books out there that are on emotions, and use them. You know, that's there. They help to describe the emotions. They have pictures with it. Let us get creative. Essentially, we want to meet ourselves where we were left off. You know, often with complex PTSD, it's like a developmental trauma. So our emotional development often got stuck at a very young age. So if that kid's book is helpful, then use it. Okay, and there's a lot of other books and resources available that explain emotions, but pictures have been very helpful for me, because then I can almost like pretend I am that person, being like an actor, and seeing if I can evoke that same kind of emotion in my body. And for the longest time there was no sensation there. I didn't know what it was meant to feel like, and there was nothing there. But I allowed that to be. I didn't criticize that or think that is wrong, because I knew this is changing the pattern, because I'm no longer feeling that intense shame right now, because I know what that feels like in my body. That's not there. So it is something different, and allowing that to be okay and feel good and let that be that. So just it's one of those things that require a lot of patience with ourselves, I think, the whole healing. But the visualization practice is difficult, A, because we don't know what that is meant to feel like, and B, it is so hard for us to focus. It's for me, I should speak for myself, but focusing and paying attention was really hard, and visualization exercises require that intense focus, visualizing in detail what, for example, courage would look like. How would you walk? How would you talk? You know, what would that feel like in your body? How would you hold? You know, what would your shoulders be doing? Would you have more eye contact? And all these kind of things. Okay, so no, I lost my train of thought. I'm talking about how hard it is paying attention, and I lost where I was going with that. Because it's so, the paying attention. That's why we want to keep those exercises really short. Okay, when I visualize, I don't try to do a visualization exercise for an hour, because it just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't work. But I can do it for a few minutes every day. I can do that in the morning, I can do it at lunchtime, I can do it in the evening, and that helps building those new neuronal circuits so I have other options available there for me. Okay. So I hope that was helpful, as always, and this is just one exercise of many. There's so many things you can do about that, but I just that was perhaps the most helpful for me, that made the biggest difference on my healing journey using visualization. So anyways, thank you for being here, and as always, sending you lots and lots of love and rainbows to brighten up the tough times just a little. See you guys, bye.